Please rise for the rendering of military honor.
Firing party! 10 hot! Run up! Hey! Run up! Run up! Run up! Where's that? Oh!
Okay.
You hitting record, right?
Ready?
Say,
All right.
Got everybody in order.
What do you want to do? Line up?
I want them to listen.
Say record, Brian, on the bottom.
Yeah.
Okay? Okay. Are we ready now?
Now,
In those days, Caesar Augustus issued a decree that a census should be taken of the entire Roman world. This was the first census that took place while Quirinius was governor of Syria. Everyone went to his own town to register. So Joseph also went up from the town of Nazareth in Galilee to Judea, to Bethlehem, the town of David, because he belonged to the house and line of David. He went there to register with Mary, who was pledged to be married to him, was expecting a child. While they were there, the time came for the baby to be born, and she gave birth to her firstborn, a son. She wrapped him in cloth and placed him in a manger, because there was no room for them in the inn. There were shepherds living out in the field nearby. Excuse me. Shepherds living out in the field nearby, keeping watch over their flocks at night. An angel of the Lord appeared to them, and the glory of the Lord shone around them, and they were terrified. But the angel said to them, "Do not be afraid. I bring you good news of great joy to be for all the people. Today in the town of David, a Savior has been born to you. He is Christ the Lord. This will be a sign to you. You'll find a baby wrapped in cloth and lying in a manger." Suddenly a great company of the heavenly host appeared with the angel, praising God and saying, "Glory to God in the highest, and on earth peace to men on whom his favor rests." When the angels had left them and gone into heaven, the shepherds said to one another, "Let's go to Bethlehem and see this thing that has happened, which the Lord has told us about." So they hurried off and found Mary and Joseph and the baby, who was lying in the manger. When they had seen him, they spread the word concerning what had been told them about this child. And all who heard it were amazed at what the shepherd said to them. But Mary treasured up all these things and pondered them in her heart. The shepherds returned, glorifying and praising God for all the things they had heard and seen, which were just as they had been told. We read this as a reminder. We enjoy being together, having a big dinner and enjoying the company of each other, exchanging gifts. But this is a reminder why we do this. The love that's in our hearts for each other is from God. The exchanging of gifts represents the wonderful gift that God the Father gave to us, each one of us, if we accept it. That's Jesus Christ the Lord. He came to earth and gave his life that we may live and have life eternally and have a full life here. That's, in a nutshell, what Christmas is about, commemorating the birth of Christ. There's a lot of things in this story probably hard to understand in our present civilization. For instance, a manger. Many of you know what a manger is. It's a feeding trough. It's a trough where animals eat. When I was a teenager, I used to work on farms, different ones, and in a horse stable, each horse had its own manger, just about the size of a baby bed or a little bigger. The cows have a long manger on in front of them from their stanchions. But as you picture it, they were in a stable because it says there's no room for them in the inn. But the inn, in those days, was actually an open corral with sheds all around the perimeter of it. When people were traveling, they traveled with animals, of course, in those days. The animals were put in this corral, and they stayed in one of those sheds, just a protection from the weather. But they were all full. So he who owned it had a stable in a cave, which was actually a better place than it would have been in one of those stalls around the perimeter of that corral. So when they say there's no room at the inn, it sounds like a bad thing, but it was a good thing because they got to stay inside a stable, which was a cave, and the animals in it, and whether or not it was very cold, that's questionable, but they were protected from the weather inside. And as you know, in a stable where there's a bunch of animals, it's warmer. So he was born in this stable, born in a barn, you might say. And after his birth, they laid him in a manger, which was an obvious place. They put fresh hay in that manger, and it was probably a better bed than he would have had if he went out there in the open field. Anyway, we know the reason why he came, why we celebrate this day. Any questions? Anybody want to add to this? We heard a sermon the other night, last night. The pastor was reminding us that God's people, through the Old Testament, there's prophets that God spoke through them to the people. One right after another. If you read the Old Testament, all those old prophets, it's the minor and the major prophets. But from the last one of Malachi until John the Baptist's father, Zechariah, was spoken to, there was 400 years when God did not speak to man. There were no prophets. There was no word from God for 400 years. Then God spoke to Zechariah, who was in the Holy of Holies, inner sanctum. He spoke to him and said, you will have a son who will be the forerunner of the Messiah. And then, of course, when Christ was born, that was God speaking to this earth, speaking to his people. And it kind of blows you on when you realize for 400 years there was nothing from God. What a terrible time it must have been. How fortunate we are God sent his son, who was God himself, sent to live as a man. And at his death we have the Holy Spirit guiding us. Within us we accept Christ, guiding us each day. No questions? Okay, I'll be quiet. Yeah, let's have it and we'll see if the food is ready. Our Father, we thank you so much for this wonderful Christmas season, but help us to realize that all the beautiful lights and the exchange of gifts, Christmas trees, all of this points back to your Son, our Savior Jesus, coming to earth. Now as we enjoy the fellowship with each other, we realize too that your Spirit is in our midst, and the love we have in our hearts for each other comes from you. Thank you for this food you provide. May we enjoy it and have a wonderful time around the table. Continue to guide us and use us in your service. In Jesus' name, amen.
Glad you noticed. That's the first thing I noticed, believe me, if you walk around that corner. I started shaving. Mine done.
So there's 22 of us? Yes. All I knew was 20 though. Winnie, I don't want to. You understand that?
You can talk now.
Where is he? Let me see.
Get some dates.
Get away from it.
I'll call this week and see which date, Memorial Day or Labor Day or whatever. See if we can have it. I'd rather go to the small reunion. Because the other, I mean, it was nice. It was fun to be there. And there's a bunch of folks there. But the first one we went to he was better because it was small.
Cranberry sauce stuff. Yeah, but they might want 20. Cranberry sauce.
That's a what?
Cranberry sauce. Mandarin oranges. And I said, well, let me try that. I mean, it was real good. It looked like tarts instead of y'all know. You're just supposed to come and eat. Daddy.
Do you have to tell you that? You got to take him somewhere to get him sewed up.
I told him he loved very good. He didn't know him that well. He still didn't talk about you every time I said
Let's see what heavy, whatever it is.
I like it.
right before he died.
What is it? Give it?
Don't drop it on your foot because you'll never have another foot.
Tell her what it is.
It's actually a hose reel.
Uh-huh.
You can mount to your house and outside.
Uh-huh.
I've worked with her husband.
Yes, and then there's some pieces that go in
Wind up
between.
your garden hose.
Or you can do, I got my mom one, and she doesn't want to do that. She's gonna
Put it on our
put
kitchen
it on the
wall.
wall and put things on the stove and
This is part of, they go together.
there should be some.
They said they are in there.
Okay. Give me 3 of them.
Three little fingers are yours up together.
Yes, he was.
Drop it, midnight.
You have him on?
Whatever you want.
Midnight. Midnight.
Read the name again.
And the
Midnight.
rabbit hose on the wall.
Hang the garden hose on.
Drop the ball.
See,
Midnight.
Pretty to put outside and put garden hose
Midnight.
on.
you see the little one go on the end of this,
Midnight.
which you've got.
Midnight. Midnight. Good doggy. Midnight. Midnight. Forget that. I'll do my Britney Spears and towel.
I'll figure out where I'm gonna, but I don't know how in the world you want to put that. When I see my yard, I don't think
It's a tape and a book. Gentlemen, I'll give it to you.
Sing, Mary had a little lamb. Give Wright a big kiss.
that's your apple
Oh,
stuff.
I know, I like that. I don't have anything like that for things to go in.
Right behind you like that.
What is that?
Seen, as seen on TV.
Where did they come from?
For mom and dad.
Sonda and Uncle Joey.
Did they order it off?
They sent it back with me.
I don't know where they ordered
No,
them.
there it says, similar to those seen on TV.
Oh.
Instruction on, oh, I'm doing the wrong one.
What is that, Tori?
It's Karaoke Angelica. Karaoke Angelica. She sings that. Dad, that's what they want. That's what
Singing Angelica.
Whoa. Well, she sings, but then.
What is it, Tessa?
You can both sing it. Do you want to give one too? Tessa. They got Tessa. Where is he?
My hearing aid.
Turn it down. Turn that thing down. What is this?
You can use it 3 different ways, I think. You can let it sing, or then you can sing to the music, or then you can sing with it together.
Poochlings.
Nope, that's all, honey.
Ew.
Oh, you got
You make it, gumballs, you make it to a necklace.
No, she's not opening it until we get home.
That goes on the end of it. See this?
What do you do? Just turn it on, just walk and flash it? What do you do?
Listen, watch them.
Toys these days.
With the bees, making fresh
I was gonna say.
Making fresh honey.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. I forgot about that.
Never have taken you and, where'd they go? Chris and Greg over here.
Here they are.
Taking you for a ride in the wheelbarrow
I was just gonna say that one too.
when you were little? Yeah.
The hunt, the bees and the wheelbarrow, oh yeah. I remember that. And did we all have overalls on?
Yeah, all have Oshkosh Bagosh.
Gosh, we got.
He used to always ask me if Claudia had an off switch. Yeah. She never shut up.
Yeah, he would say to Diane, "Has she got an off switch?" Just run her mouth all the time.
Or even a pause.
When Mom and Dad first got married, what was it, a couple years later, I think it was after Marilyn was married and we started going on vacation. Really the first time we ever did. And you know how Daddy was a history buff.
Oh, God, yeah.
Oh my gosh, he, you know there's road signs all the way.
Every little time.
Oh my God, we had to stop every time, and I told Mom, one time I said, oh my God, he missed one. Don't tell him, so he won't turn around. He did, but you learn that way too.
He made her and I stand in front of every, baby crossing with here or whatever. And here would always be like this.
I was over it. And I was 13 or something like that, so I was put out by him.
And then was it your thumb? He closed the door on your thumb?
I did.
And he laughed until he almost fell off the...
He always
and she
laughed
like,
at me. Well, it hurt.
I know it, that hurt.
He had a little sense of humor.
Yeah, he did, and you know, he was here at the table with one of the granddaughters, the little ones, I don't know which one it was. And Hilda was in the kitchen frying fish or something, and he was explaining something to the granddaughter, and all of a sudden the smoke alarm went off, and the little girl says, "Is that your smoke alarm?" He said, "Either that or your grandma's backing up."
There's a lady at the church said that's what he had the sweetest smile, she said. She come visit
I've never seen him in a bad mood.
Ever.
Oh my God.
Granddaddy?
Yeah.
I bet Dave and Jane have seen him in a bad mood.
No, not really.
I had him calm down the time they got here.
Except when I tried to put him in that wheelchair. He wasn't happy.
He didn't like that at all.
That was the first time I seen him get a little irritated.
You thought he was going to challenge me and you, but he didn't.
Other than that, I mean, he's always...
I never heard him raise his voice.
Huh?
I never heard him raise his voice.
Well, he did to me last year when I had that hat on.
Well, he didn't raise his voice, but they had already... Diane called me and told me, I said, "Oh, you can't bring them down here yet." I said, "I have to talk to him." So time y'all got here, he was calmed down. He was still white because he was so mad about it.
It's weird how things come full circle, huh?
And I said, "You are to be nice to them kids." Okay. It broke his heart because he didn't think Jane would ever finish school. That's what broke his heart. So, but she did. She showed him up. She did. Because he thought the world of her. Because she was really making herself something.
And then I came along.
Dirty Dave.
Dirty Dave, done dirt cheap.
But he thought a lot of Dave afterwards. But he was ready to choke him at first.
And then Daddy was giving us a lecture about something. It was me and Dave and his brother Brad. Dave falls asleep. Dad goes, "Son, you sleeping?" Dave goes, "No, sir, I'm just checking my eyelids for holes."
Then he bumped his head in the bathroom. And he didn't tell me he did it. And I had gone in there to check on him because it had been a while. And I knocked on the door. He said hello. And I said, he told me to come in. And I was like, "Granddad, you didn't tell me you bumped your head." He's like, "Well, you knew I was in here." I said, "Well, I didn't know you bumped your head." And so I got him in the chair there. And I was cleaning his head a little bit. He said, "Oh, brother, I'm going to hear it now. Now I can't even go to the bathroom." And I said, "Well, I think that's the most important thing right now." And he said, "Oh, brother." He just kept saying, "Oh, brother, I'm going to hear it now." He was more concerned about that.
He's more concerned I'd get on to him about
Did you get on to him?
No, I didn't get on to him. I just cleaned him up.
It wasn't funny, but it was funny.
Because he was afraid of it.
Yeah.
Anybody to see him like that.
It wasn't.
Well, that's why that one year he didn't want to go to the reunion because he had that sciatic nerve in his back real bad. He didn't want to go to the reunion in a wheelchair or walker or anything.
Yeah.
Right, he wasn't going to go that year. I said, now it's either you go or the family's coming over here. So we got a wheelchair. Greg and I went over to finally thought we'd get one at the church, but we went over there to the nursing home over here, and they had one for me. And he had swore he would never ride in a wheelchair. We pushed him right up there. He
So
dealt
you're
with it.
getting in this wheelchair, and he got in it. Greg said, will he get in it? I said, yeah, he'll get in it. Right.
You weren't happy that year, though.
He was very independent, and this is breaking him down, and he didn't like that. And so that's where this come in. Because he was such a gentleman. I don't know about you girls. I know y'all know he was such a gentleman all of his life. And he expected everybody, every man, to be a gentleman too. Even girls, boys that y'all dated, I'm sure he'd give y'all a
He
hard time.
always told
with.
me walking down the sidewalk, make sure that I was on the inside first, and the boy was on the outside.
Yeah, he would tell you all that stuff, and I know y'all know, you could probably tell us a story more than we did. But I only had 47 years with him, but he was always a gentleman. When me and him first started dating, we went to the movie, first place we went. He got out, come around, opened the door, and I'm not used to this kind of stuff, you know. And he comes around, opens the door, and helps me out. And the girls are sitting on the couch when I got back. They said, did he kiss you? I said, I ain't held my hand yet. And that was the truth. He really did. And he was such a gentleman, polite. He always was, as far as I know him. And I had somebody, when I was at the funeral, to tell me it was my sister's son. Tell me what a gentleman he was. He said, I told somebody the other day, if you wanted to see a gentleman, you should have seen my Uncle George. They called him George. And so he left a good record of his life. So that's a lot we have to live up to, y'all. We got to straighten ourselves up and live up to the legacy that he left for us. So, because when me and him got married, the girls, I said, now you don't have to call till Carolyn and Marilyn was still here. No, Juanita and Marilyn was still here.
Yeah, Carolyn got married.
And I said, you don't have to call him Daddy, but you do have to call him Mr. Crippen. And so they chose to ask him if it was all right for they to call him Dad. And he said, I'd be glad for you to call me Dad. And he said later in his life, any man can get a woman pregnant, but it takes very few men to be a dad.
That's right.
That's right.
And that's the way he looked at it. And Carolyn then came down, and she had already married, and she heard the other good girls calling him Dad. She said, Mom, you think Mr. Crippen care if I call him Dad? I said, why don't you ask him? So they asked him, and he said, be glad for you too. So that's the way it was. Unless y'all knew the family, you would not know that we're step kids. You would not know that. No.
You know how I found out you were getting married? Juanita says to me, you know, as soon as my mama gets her permanent in her hair, your daddy and her is going to get married.
I think I was 14.
You were 12.
12? I thought it was at least after. I thought you divorced my daddy when I was 13.
No, it was earlier than that.
Oh, it was? Okay. Then I was 12 then.
You guys got married in 68?
69. We got married in 69.
When our boys were a year old. And they came down here,
Chris and Greg were a year old, yeah.
and met their new grandma and terrorized this house.
And I was the bad girl, or bad boy. Chris always called me bad boy.
He said bad Nita.
No, I thought he said bad boy.
Oh, yeah. I wrote it down in
Juanita was the teenager, into the teenager. She's beginning to tell everybody what to do. You know how teenagers are.
She ain't stopped.
But Chris didn't like that. Chris didn't like that. So when he went back home, he was calling her bad. He didn't like her at all.
That's what Joey and Sona moved down here, and they were waiting to move into their house, and they stayed with me for a couple weeks, and they had the three, Mandy, JoJo, Tyler, and Tessa just loved it, having them there. But every time when he was in there, so it was a few years back, and I went and got him coffee at Dunkin' Donuts, black coffee, I got cream on the side because I couldn't remember. And I brought it to him, and they had put cream in it. And he doesn't like cream. How do you mess up a cup of black coffee? Anyways, they did. And I was like, oh, I'm sorry, Granddad. I said, I can go down to the cafeteria and get your cup. He said, no, it's fine. I'll just drink it. And he took a sip of it, and I was like, well, how does it taste? He said, it tastes like coffee with cream in it. And I was like, oh, okay. My dad. And the guy next to him started cracking up. You know, the curtain was drawn, but he just started cracking up. He thought that was the funniest thing he heard that day.
He was always doing that. And he would not stand in between me and the girls. He never tried to correct one of them. He would tell me if when Juanita got the driving car, she would be at different places, and he would go by to go to work, and he'd see her car. He'd call me and say, well, Juanita so-and-so, Juanita's getting in. How did my mama know I was there? But he never butted in. He would just tell me, I saw Juanita's car at so-and-so's. And then when she come in, I was saying, where you was?
Did you say something that I knew would set him off?
Well, that was the difference. He was probably more strict with y'all growing up than he was never with the other girls. Because
Oh, yeah. They were all younger than us. Juanita's the baby.
Well, yeah, that's what I'm saying. The Juanita and Marilyn and Carolyn never seen the.
Well, Carolyn didn't grow up. Yeah, I mean, she didn't.
She was already married.
She was already married when they got married, and he took her up there to see Carolyn because she just had a baby. He married a wife, and then came back with a grandma.
Yeah. Yeah, he said, I didn't mind being married to a grandma, didn't mind to be married to an old woman, but I hate to be married to a grandma. He said. Carolyn had Bud 2 days after we got married, so he did.
So he was happy to have this.
Yeah, because Marilyn was only here because when y'all got married, you bought this place.
1 year.
So Marilyn and me shared that room for 1 year, and then the rest of the time it was mine.
And it's still purple.
There's another thing. Juanita was dating James, and he got where her time would be in the house at 11 o'clock. When I said 11 o'clock, I meant 11 o'clock. Well, he started leaving 10 minutes, then 15 minutes. I said, Juanita, you tell James the next time he brings you here late, I'm meeting him at the car and I'm going to slap both sides of his face. Granddaddy got so tickled about that, and he just laughed and laughed and laughed. And he said, now, he was real serious, if you do that, you be sure you do it real quick. But James didn't have her late no more.
I was always late after that.
Oh dear.
And that's why I told him our wedding wasn't until 1, and it was at 2, so he got there.
And my sister came down here, and there was a big map on the side of the bathroom. You know, when you go there, when you sit on the commode, there's a big map up on the wall. She come out, she said, Dale, how come the map on the wall in your bathroom? I said, George, they call him, George don't want us to miss any time of not learning. And he's sitting on that commode.
I had one all growing up. There was a world map somewhere in the house.
He wanted Juanita to learn that thing. That's why he had it there for. Juanita was supposed to be learning.
And now with all this national stuff going on, I'd like to know where it is on the map, but I didn't study it.
Did he put a map on the wall for y'all too?
Oh, yeah.
He did? Okay.
We had one in the family room, remember?
You don't ever ask him what a word means. So.
Oh my gosh, no. No. I learned a long time ago. Look it up.
Look
it up. There's a dictionary right over there.
Look it up, that's it.
Daddy tell me how to spell so-and-so. He said, and don't tell me to look it up on the map.
It's in that dictionary.
Certificate and something,
Oh, good gracious, I can't pick it up.
I couldn't. I have a couple of grabbers around the apartment because I can't pick it up.
Thank
You
you.
know what? He was showing me that album of that trip one Sunday when I was here, and it was, I never heard him really talk like this, but in that reunion where they took the picture of just the guys that were left, and he was like, yeah, look at me. They put me right in the middle of the two guys I hated the most. That one was a jerk right there, and that one, well, I just couldn't stand him. And I think he might have used some other words that I've never heard him use before. And I was like, oh, okay.
Yeah, I heard Daddy cussing just a few very times, and I like that fell out of my chair.
I know, I was like, what?
But it had to be something, I mean, really to make him go off.
Oh, yeah.
It was big.
He was like, yeah, I always hated that fella.
And one of them fellas, one that you were talking about, he told the story that he was on his group and he shot a rifle. But when he shot the rifle, he would close his eyes, and he said, I told him to get that SOB off of there. And stuff like that. And when we went to their reunions, that's what we would hear. Them fellas telling all their stories.
Yeah, it was funny. He was told me a little bit about all the people in there.
And he'd tell you why he didn't like him and why he did like him.
Yeah, I couldn't remember exactly what he was saying.
That's what I'm looking at.
Is that Donald Trump's signature?
Yep.
Daddy be rolling over in his
See, he's got one on the wall of it, and they asked, did you want any more? And so I told them I wanted one for every girl. And you do what you want to win. But Dad he was respected enough to have the president to sign it, and that's something to be proud of, even though
here, he was in Pearl Harbor on December 7th. Well, last year he told me, he says, we weren't in Honolulu, we were on the Big Island in Hilo loading up women. We took the airplane over there, and we was over there when it got bombed.
That's right.
And I thought he was at
And then they flew back.
Yeah.
And was
shot at.
Their own people were shooting at them.
They were
thought,
shooting at
yeah,
on the way
yeah.
back. Well, he said the pilot didn't do what he was supposed to do.
Right.
the pilot told him to come right straight in, but the pilot had been trained to circle. And he got shot at. He told them stories. I tell them stories myself. I'm going to write a book. Saying, George Osmer Crippen, this is his story, and I'm telling it. This is something that Marilyn wrote that her and Barry wanted to go be here. She said, we remember the trip when we went with Dad and Mom to the 5th Bomb Group in San Antonio and then Dallas in 2014 and 2015. Barry in the car found 5 or 6 hours of story Daddy told him all the way there and back. War stories. Barry loved them so much though that he never will forget that Barry sat kind of like this over so he could hear him, and he told him war stories for 5 to 6 hours over there and back.
And he would tell funny stories about the war.
Right.
About the guy in the hospital that had the urine, had to give him a urine specimen, and he put apple cider in it and left it right there on the tray. And when the nurse came to get it, he said, wait a minute, let's run that through one more time, and he drank it.
And the nurse thought it was pee still sitting there.
One more time.
But that is the stories. I'm sure y'all got more stories to tell about him. He's, like I say, I have stories that he wrote that I had a feller that come here and sat for 10 hours and he wrote stories. See, I got it, but you can't hear what he's saying because he had the speaker in his pocket. But he also wrote it down. And so these 3 girls that's here, this is Dad's story. One for you, one for you,
Thank you.
and one for Diane. That's the story of that I had that feller to sit here and take it, and he wrote it down also. But on the tape we can't hear it, but it's wrote down in the words. Part of his story. It tells the story of when he first was boy and all that. Well, anyway, that is respected. That's just like that one right there that Daddy's got up there. Each girl got one.
Okay.
And each
Yeah, I
girl.
was thinking about this the other day. I said, they didn't give me my hard copy of it.
Everybody else has got theirs, but you. I kept forgetting it. Marilyn said, "Mom, where is it?" So that's the story.
Okay.
That much I got of him. And he had it on a tape, but now y'all got it in writing. So frame it. And it tells you when you get
Yeah,
home.
he went to
get home
Okinawa. I
and read
remember
it.
him saying that he was at Okinawa.
And some of this stuff, there's not enough of paper to write everything.
He was at Okinawa after the war, because we were there with it in Carroll.
In Okinawa?
Yeah.
And he had TV, that's why he didn't send him to Vietnam, because that's why he spent 6 months in the
What's
hospital.
it in for crumbs? You looking for crumbs?
He was in there being debriefed. Because he was doing some work in a mobile.
Well, I have to tell Craig that why was they giving him them pills that
Yeah.
he took?
Why did his x-ray show up like that?
Right, and even found it on him after me and him married. We had to go to the hospital.
Yeah, we had to take pills.
He probably was debriefed, but he did have.
Hey, Craig is probably right. He was debriefed.
We weren't allowed phone calls or anything with him, nothing.
Because
phone calls had nothing to do with his disease. We were not allowed to talk on the phone, nothing.
Oh, my.
Just writing.
They went and investigated where he lived and everything because he was in secret thing.
And his letters to us were censored anyway. It was like being in prison. Yeah, oh yeah, yeah, investigated my husband, her husband, everybody we associated with.
Where he was
Thoroughly
child, born,
investigated.
and everything.
And where he worked, the whole time he worked there, he had to have certain credentials to get through the gate. And then it was down underground. And he was there every day, afternoon, starting to blah, blah, blah. One day he forgot his credentials. They had him spread eagle on the ground with rifles to his head. Even though they knew him by first name.
That's right. He's
That's
on
those
top
are the
secret.
rules.
And I imagine there are people now there just like he was, same way.
Yeah.
On the secret stuff.
He was chief advisory to the commanding colonel of that particular base.
Have y'all been, any of you kids been by the cemetery to see us?
Oh, yeah. I have.
He's got flowers, I put poinsettias on there. I
I
put
haven't been
poinsettias
close to
on
Christmas.
Grandpa Crippen and Oria Louise's.
Yeah,
But I haven't seen Bill to tell him to go by and look.
He called me and left a message.
Friday is his birthday.
Craig's,
Daddy's birthday.
yeah, I have to go and put red roses there first.
And the day
29th?
before
Yeah.
is Elliot's. It's the day before.
But he's, y'all don't know, may not think, but he's a man to be proud of, and be proud that you know him. Dad is.
Oh, I know that, Mom.
I just want to point that out to his.
Yeah, because when I talk about Dad at work, because we do, in the summertime, all of us clerks are still there, and we horse around at lunchtime, and I says, even though he was my stepdaddy, I says, he was my father. I says, I never thought of him as my stepfather.
Yeah.
And everybody talks, they say, is that stepdad? We don't even use the word. We don't use the word.
But when I first met you, you had a hard row to hoe with us too. Because Daddy's former wife was a bitch.
Delete, delete, delete.
These two girls has told me things about her I just can't believe.
No, I don't even tell most people because
It's
they
hard
won't
to
believe it.
believe.
It's hard to believe that any person could be that rude with two girls. Because see, their daddy gone off the service.
I know. I
and
heard
then
that
leave
story
them
about how he
alone
come back
with
and
her.
she stole everything.
While he was in the
And-
hospital.
And he gets shipped off to Japan again, and she wouldn't even let us in the house. Padlocks on the refrigerator, padlocks on the stove.
Oh, God.
And this person treating his
where-
girl that way.
She
Oh,
threw me out when I was 17, told me to get lost. So I did.
see, how can you just can hardly realize that there's a person in this world that can be that mean. Well, she's not in the world now no more. But she mistreated him so when he was out of sight, see.
And when he came back, she was all sweetness and light. He never knew anything she did to
He
her.
did eventually.
Finally, he did.
But when we found out she had heart trouble, Carol wanted to skin some chickens and hang in her doorway.
And then yell boo real loud so she'd have a heart attack.
That is not what Jesus tells us to do, y'all. Now I'll preach to y'all why. Jesus tells us to love our neighbors because he says, I'll take care of that. He tells us he'll take care of all that kind of stuff. We're supposed to, but I know you girls have it hard. I understand that. But
Some of them I want to help though.
But what do you say?
He said some of them I want to help though.
Yeah, help.
That's so sad. But we miss him very much. But it helped us. Helping us to grow together, y'all. To get over his death. We ain't going to get over it. We'll just live with it. That's the way I live with it. And I wouldn't take nothing in the world for being in this house because some days he's alive.
No, isn't that funny?
Some days I can, and y'all may think I'm crazy, but I'm not quite. I'm whitehead,
Well,
but I'm
these
not
were
crazy.
the best years of his life.
Yes, and I made that was. Some days I feel like he's in the bed next to me. And I look over there, well, that's not so. I'm not, I'm dreaming or something.
The first part of his life, he practically froze or starved to death.
Oh, my goodness.
And then after that, it was just one thing after another. Until
Well, then you just
here.
call back and tell me.
This is when he finally got to have a normal life.
Yeah,
And a woman that treats him good.
Yeah.
treat him, I wouldn't,
Well, I had the pleasure.
I love the man.
I had the pleasure.
How would you treat?
I had the pleasure of asking to take his clothes off. You remember when I made him go in there and take his shirt off and gave him a back rub?
Oh, yeah. She gave him a back
He
rub.
was complaining of something.
His back was hurting,
Yeah.
And so he took his clothes off and she rubbed his back.
Well, not all of them.
Well, just down on his back, but, she's a nurse,
Not many people can say that.
Right, and say, look at you, oh, what's that? But, we'll just we stayed knitted together. He loved his family, y'all.
He did.
He loved his family.
He never treated none of us. I mean, Marilyn, Carolyn, or me any different than anybody.
Oh, no, he wouldn't. He wouldn't.
Because my mother went through a hard time because my father, he liked his women. But that man right there, he loved my mom.
Yeah.
And I think that he was in our life.
So this Christmas has been kind of hard for us, but it's good to us too. Because I told everybody, I said, I didn't hear from y'all for 2 weeks after Dad died. I said, oh, everybody died. Nobody talked to me for 2 weeks.
Well, it was so hard to
I know y'all was having a time too. I understand that. But y'all have been good to me. Y'all have to help take care of me, y'all. The fellas gathered in here and cleaned up this place and made it look wonderful.
It wasn't just me. It was.
I said fellas. So
Yeah, there was a lot of people this time.
they all came.
It was like a 6 or 7 hour job. We had so much help.
Greg and Brian and
Brian.
Chris and Dave and Heather and
Heather, her name.
who else? house.
Heather cooked dinner for us, or cooked lunch, or packed lunch for us. It was good.
And that was great too, and besides now, when I thought, well, surely Dave's gonna let me pay for the paint, let me pay for anything. Wonderful, Dave. Words, I told y'all, our words cannot explain what it meant.
I needed the blessing.
And Dad was blessed, he was seeing it, and he was pleased with it too. So, he said, if I could just say what he would say, he said, I told him youngins to take care of you.
I was out there painting, and I heard the boy say, "Take that hat off."